I'm Janaea Donaldson. Welcome to Peak Moment. I'm here with three wonderful women from Vashon Island in the Puget Sound of Washington, and we're going to talk about their efforts and others to do sustainable things on their island. So I'm here with Marilee Runyon, who's with the Sustainable Vashon, one of the co-founders, and with Hillary Crocker, who's with the Vashon Earth Awareness Coalition. Thank you for joining us. And Lisa Matthews, who's a farmer and also president of the Vashon Island Growers Association. Welcome, all of you. Thank you for joining us on Peak Moment.
Thank you.
Well, I know that there are lots of things to talk about what you're doing and what you're envisioning for sustainability for your island. But let's get a sense of what's already on the ground. And I'm going to start with Marilee. Tell us what Sustainable Vashon is, how you've gotten involved, what are you doing?
Okay. Sustainable Vashon is, actually, I think it has a really interesting history that I've always appreciated. We actually started in the spring of 2002, and we were part of a community response to our government's invasion of Afghanistan. And a number of people in the community invited all of us in to a conversation about what this meant to us. It was in response to what had happened to the country in 9/11, and how did we feel about this way of responding, and what did we want to do. And it was very interesting because we broke up into 3 or 4 interest groups, and one was about what I would call holding actions, and out of that came the organization called Vashon Islanders for Peace, and their primary purpose on the island is to be activists on behalf of peace, whether it's on the island or in Seattle. They organize marches, letter writing. I mean, they're just tireless in their activities. There was a group called Global Links that was really interested in fostering relationships between Vashon and the wider world. There was a group that wanted to pursue spirituality, and we were told that we were in a cataclysmic battle between Islam and Christianity, and that didn't feel right, so what is it that we share as people? And then there was a group of folks who were really interested in sustainability. And I think about that as the people who wanted to begin thinking about and learning about new structures. If clearly how we live doesn't work, we've created created a crisis in the world, and how are we going to get out of it? Well, all of those ways address how we get out of it, and what got Sustainable Vashon going was the desire to begin to create models. What would this look like to live sustainably? So we started with a conference. We invited the whole island to come and talk about Sustainable Vashon, and we paid for it by getting used t-shirts and creating a stencil that we ironed onto every t-shirt, and we sold them in town, and I don't know, made about $300.
What did it say? What did it look like?
It was a beautiful picture. It says Sustainable Vashon, and it was a big sun, and it was the island and the water, and and it said Sustainability Conference, September 2002. And we spent the morning hearing from people who were very knowledgeable about different aspects of the island: agriculture, energy, transportation, garbage, water, education and health sort of services. And in the afternoon, we invited people to go to the area that they were really drawn to and begin to think, well, what do we want to do about this area? And out of that came this organization, and I say that with kind of a smile because we've tried really hard not to be a traditional, not-for-profit sort of hierarchical thing. And so we have this traveling exhibit that's a fishnet, actually. We call ourselves a network of people and projects on the island that all promote aspects of sustainability. And we have a group of folks loosely organized who promote the use of biodiesel on the island. But for example, really largely through their making biodiesel a common subject. We have a company that offers, you can go to a gas station and get biodiesel.
So you have biodiesel on the island?
We have biodiesel
now.
On the island.
Good for you.
Exactly.
Right.
The agriculture group formed into a group called Edible Island, whose goal is to promote local food and ensure that everybody on Vashon can participate and have local food.
That's nice.
One of the things I really like about sustainability is it's really 3 things. It's economic justice, it's environmental justice, and it's social justice. And people often get stuck in the environmental part or one other part. So what I love about Edible Island is the commitment to support local food and make it available as best we can.
That's going to be really important because, if we leave out the folks who can't afford to get the grain imported from elsewhere, we're going to have that kind of social tension, and we're going to come together.
Well, right. And
Right.
the idea, this shouldn't be a luxury for just those few people who
Yes.
couldn't afford to be sustainable, but it's a way of living that we have to figure out how it works for all of us.
Great.
And in we've done a number of things. We've partnered with organizations to put things on. We partnered once with Viga to put on a community dinner to support the development of a food bank garden on the island. And we had a wonderful woman from off island come who has one of the first food bank gardens in the state. She's in Pierce County. And she brought seeds from her garden, and we literally had a presentation and gave the seeds to the group of folks. It actually was the Lutheran church here on the island who wanted to have that garden, and we gave the seeds to them, and we all shared in local food and humor and fun. We have partnered with other groups to show films. A whole bunch of us came together a couple of years ago and showed a film about the end of the local apple industry in the state of Washington. Broken Limbs, it's called, and it's a wonderful documentary. And most recently, we've developed a little project called Green Seed Grants, because we thought, how could we people have good ideas, what do they need to just get going? And we had a great model actually from the city of Seattle who had Neighborhood Spark Awards. And people could apply for up to a certain amount of money to do something. And all they had to promise to do was to tell what it was going to be and how they would involve their community and be willing to come back and celebrate and share what they'd learned from it. So we, from that, developed our Green Seed Grants, and we've given about 8 of them so far, and they're a maximum of $500. And we have a young man building a cob house, which is a combination of model different housing technology, but also it's a way for him to be economically sustainable. He makes pens, and he does woodworking, and so this will be his studio, and it will be open to the public regularly
To come see a
to
cob.
come and see it.
Really?
And he's involved a whole bunch of people, his family, teenagers, all kinds of people in the building of it. It's great. And we
I'm
have
going to make you pause,
Okay.
because I want to hear from the
Okay.
others.
Oh, all right.
And we may get to other grants, seed grants, but that
Yeah.
notion of seeding with money, good projects, I think it's a brilliant idea that I really want to carry forward. But I want to hear from, which you talked about the Viga group. So I'm going to move to Lisa. Tell us what Viga is, what you're doing, what your challenges are.
Viga is Vashon Island Growers Association, and it has a much longer history than I can speak to because I only moved here a year ago. And I think with the way Marilee laid out the very public part of Vashon's sustainability efforts for the last few years, I'd like to give you my perspective on someone who just moved to the island a year ago. My husband, Jeff, and I, a few years ago, the question came, what do we want to do when we grow up? And it happened a few years ago. And it's a real question. And to give yourself the time to answer it honestly and fully as a real luxury, that it would be great if everyone gave themselves that gift. We decided that farming was where we wanted to center our lives. And we took 6 months and we apprenticed on a farm in Montana for a few months, and then took the rest of the time and just went into the woods with the library within an hour away. And we'd get books and we'd go back to the campsite and just devour everything. And one of the things that was very frustrating was that we would just be right on. This is exactly right. It's so timely. And we looked at the publication date and it'd be 1973. So that struggle of why are we not there? I mean, these ideas aren't new. Sustainability, peak oil, our agriculture, those negative impacts aren't a big surprise. So why 30 years later are we still in the same place?
Yeah.
That became kind of our driving force, that the reason we're still in the same place is we can't see how it works otherwise. So the concept of building a demonstration, a model, so you can see how all of these individual pieces work together, because you can't take food outside of economics. You can't take it outside of the social arena. It all ties together. We ended up last May coming to Vashon Island and being stunned at the sustainability efforts that are already going on this island.
That's a real commendation
huge,
to your community here.
It is. There's a huge amount of individual efforts that cover the entire broad spectrum. of everything from food to biodiesel to energy to the Interfaith Council. It's a great environment for that kind of demonstration to go on. So we set up shop on leased farm property and began our CSA, which is Community Supported Agriculture. And what we have found in the past year is that outreach, there's a 10% knowledge base out there. People accept that organic is good. People accept that local is better. We all know this. It's just the next 10%. How about growing your own? How about working with your neighbor on what would be your lawn, putting in the garden there? How about working with the next person down the road who's actually wants to farm and having them work there? So it's the next steps beyond that initial outreach that I think a lot of communities are still struggling with. Vashon's got it going on. And it's just mobilizing those to the next step.
So your vision there is that nearly everyone is participating in some way in growing food. Is that part of what I see?
You mean
here?
on Vashon or potentially?
On Vashon, potentially.
I wouldn't say nearly everybody's, a lot of people.
A lot of people.
But with the Growers Association, what we're finding is that it's a very changing demographic, which is one of the challenges. Vashon Island Growers Association has been functional for quite a number of years. And 6 years ago, as a group, this island purchased a piece of property in the center of town for the village green. And it is one of the very few farmers markets that has its own property. All of the rest of them have to be on lease or rental agreements that always have the potential to shift. This one has a home. But what we're finding is that both farmers and those people who build relationships with farmers for their food, it's shifting. It's shifting what they have time for, what they're able to do, what they're able to bring to market, what they're able to take home and prepare for their family. So that next step of being involved with people on a personal basis and having people involved with their food on a personal basis is very much what we're seeking.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Yeah. Hillary, what's up with Earth Awareness? What have you been doing?
I'll give you a brief history of Vashon Earth Awareness Coalition. We were developed in 1997, and we host a festival in August. It's coming up in 2 weeks. It'll be our 10th year that we've been doing and sustaining this festival as a volunteer-run organization. And last year we had a young woman come and bring the story. She took all of our documents and read all of them and said, "Hey, I noticed that you're called Vashon Earth Awareness Coalition," and revealed that to a lot of the people that have been involved in it for almost 10 years. And I've been involved in it since 1997, and I never heard that we were Vashon Earth Awareness Coalition. It was like something that was buried. Yeah, I mean, that was the name that the founders called us, and we just became Island Earth Fair through the event that we're known for. So I'm trying to reclaim that name and work with other organizations. So I've been working with Sustainable Vashon by receiving a Green Seed grant for work that I've done on behalf of my community here.
What was your grant for?
It was for attending Earth activist training in Northern California with Starhawk and Eric Olson. And they taught us for 2 weeks in a ceremonial way, blending the spirit of healing the earth and the skills that it takes.
What kind of practical skills were you learning?
The fundamentals of permaculture.
Permaculture, okay.
So, that we're all in this together and sharing the surplus of what we create, and also understanding how the wastes are valuable as well, and looking at how much we actually, all the waste, what do we do with that?
How do we bring that back into the cycle so we're not wasting it, sending it off elsewhere? Yeah.
So I'm getting ready for the Island Earth Fair now. I coordinate the speaker and workshop stage. And
is this like a one-day event? Is this several days? What happens at the fair?
it's a whole weekend, and we invite families to come and camp out. So we create a little village for 3 days.
Fun.
Yep.
Fun.
We feed all of our volunteers. Our food is from all of our farmers that donate food. We receive food from our restaurants to feed our volunteers.
How many people come?
Oh, I think at our maximum it's been about 5,000 throughout the weekend.
That is huge. How many people on the island as a whole? Does anybody here know how many people you have on your island?
We have about 11,000 regularly, 11,000 residents.
So, I mean, that's a huge percentage of your island that comes, and
It's not
visitors,
always
I'm
our
sure,
island,
actually,
right?
visitors as well. Of course, it'd be a
It's
lovely
interesting.
trip, yeah.
Yeah,
But that's a lot of people.
It is, and I have to say it's traveling through the fair for the entire weekend. At one point, it's hard to see it because it's spread out. We offer healing arts area. We offer a sacred song and dance. We have music, local musicians, as well as traveling and national musicians. We have a kids world that's fantastic, very engaging, incredible, diversity of just workshops geared for children and their families. And we have 2 stages, like I mentioned, with music. So it's a really great place to go and think about your wellness of yourself and how you can explore your relationship with the earth and bring that back to your community.
Wow, that's impressive. And it's a lot of work to organize.
It is.
So, for all 3 of you, you cover a lot of bases. Does anybody want to say a word about any other things that are happening in terms of sustainability on your island, just to throw into the pot to fill out the picture beyond what you each are part of? You've mentioned the biofuels, so that you've got some businesses involved.
I think one thing I want to say is that there are groups on the island that are separate from all of us who work on the really important issues like water. There's a groundwater committee that's just done amazing work on where does our water come from, what do we need, how to protect it. There's the Vashon Island Land Trust that works hard to preserve habitat. It's sort of like Lisa said, there's so many different things, each having a piece of this puzzle, sort of trying to put it together.
Right. So what are, anyone else want to add something here?
Go ahead.
I want to add that in my work, I just met a man. I've been noticing that we have a huge Latino population here, and there's a lot of different cultures on our island, not to mention all the different classes and where people, live and how they work and contribute to the local island. But I'm excited to say that we're going to have some dancers and try to have a community event that really is a representative of our cultures, our multicultures.
Multicultural.
That's
great.
That's
That's
what
wonderful.
I'm really excited about
Good
that.
And that's a good point. In addition to the island having a lot of sustainability efforts, there is a vast population of artists on the island of all different types: voice, dance, sculpture, painting, across the board.
So what kinds of projects do you envision wanting to do? What's maybe in the works that you are starting? What kind of challenges do you see ahead of you? I mean, there's sort of some both ends on that.
I think one of the biggest challenges is having all of these very incredible, very articulate, very motivated, experienced people moving in one direction. And having all of the voices harmonize.
So you're saying that's not happening quite yet? That's something you hope to have happen?
I don't know if it's not happening, but for it to be happening on a very conscious level would move things very quickly here. So, and I think that's something different. We're a very friendly place. I don't think there's no open warfare between any of the organizations, but they're so committed to their point of view, and everybody thinks that their point of view is the most critical and the highest priority, and we really need to address this first. And sometimes when you're that passionate, it's very difficult to stand back and say, no, you go first. So, and it's not so much about going first, but if we could come together under one, And an umbrella is a little bit of a simplistic way of saying it. But come together as one voice, I think we would be much stronger.
I really agree with you a lot. Because I think that each of us have a piece of the story, but we just have a piece, and I have this vision that we would come together and create a big enough story so that everybody's part made sense, and the story would propel us. It would be the shelter that would get us to go forward, rather than the water story and the sustainable Vashon story and this, I see that, and I'm curious about how we make that happen. What's being called for? I think about that a lot. What's being asked of me, of us now, to make that possible?
Right.
Yeah. I think that some parts of Mother Earth is probably sort of going to give us a little nudges from the behind there as the oil prices are going up, and they already are higher. You know that as an island people, because there are no bridges to this island. So you're doing ferries. You're probably more tuned to the vulnerability you have to supply. You know, if a massive storm came through, you all wouldn't get some of your food supplies, I would expect. And you've already lived through some of that. So you've already got a heightened consciousness about yourselves that you could begin from.
I think potentially, though, that's one of the challenges, is it's very comfortable living here in the Pacific Northwest. It's a beautiful island. We don't have some of those kinds of in-your-face challenges that a lot of urban areas do about shortages, because everything here feels very abundant and very safe. So I think there are times that can work against us as well.
Lull you a little bit. So, other projects. You're starting to work on a declaration of sustainability, or looking at some asset mapping. Tell me a little bit about any of those.
And the declaration for the first sustainable community in Washington State was an idea that we had to try to bring all these groups in under one voice, in under one umbrella. And one of the challenges with that is, again, it's just very strong personalities and very strong histories. These sustainability efforts have been going on for all those years. You know, reading the books and seeing 1973, people have been living those, not just me coming in and reading the book. So it's very difficult to then say, wait, we've got this great idea. Well, thanks. You know, we've had this idea for a long time. Yeah, we don't really need you here. So it's where I feel an incredible urgency with this. There are a lot of folks who it's a different statement for them to make. To say that we're the first sustainable community in Washington State means something different to everyone. And to some people, it's very much of a threat. You know, we can't be sustainable. We can't feed people here. We don't have enough resources. So that takes you into the community asset mapping, which is one of the most powerful tools I think available right now. And it was developed by John Kretzman and John McKnight, I believe is his name. And basically what they found is organizations that sought to help people by identifying their needs built in for themselves a necessity to keep those needs going. Because as soon as they solved the need, as soon as they filled the need, they were out of a job.
That's right.
And if you go in instead and look at the assets of a situation, you're building in a tool that can perpetrate itself.
Very nice to keep building one's assets. We have about 2 minutes. Is there some little gem that anybody else has I want to just think of to add in here in another moment?
Yeah, I keep hearing Marilyn Schlitz, who is the director of Institute for Noetic Sciences, said, "We are hospice workers caring for a dying paradigm." And I keep thinking about that in my head.
Let's say it slowly. Say it again. Hospice workers.
We are hospice workers caring for a dying paradigm.
And that paradigm is continuous growth, economic growth forever, and use up all the resources and throw away the waste. I mean, that kind of, is that part of what you
power over and hierarchical systems and all those things.
And so our problem is really our solution. finding solutions to all of these things by our little actions of awareness, and really encouraging and empowering each person to be a participant in this, and to come with like a contagious fever. That's what I keep visualizing. It's going to be so contagious, you can't help but like contribute and be here.
And what you're talking about is a new story. Is that we are midwives then for a new
Right.
story.
Yes.
It's not about domination over others, and it's not about use it all up and throw it away.
That's right. And it's not about imposing our will. We have to figure out what it looks like. If we're not how do we build a story and not impose it, but generate a story.
But it's
out
so
of all
wonderful
this.
that people want to join the story.
Yeah, exactly. I love it what you said. Say it again. Passionate.
That it'll be so contagious.
Yes, contagious. Right. Total reframe of contagious. I love it.
I guess the other thing is just along with that is that the peak oil crisis isn't so much about oil, or isn't so much about something breaking or dying, because that's the way ecology works. It rises, it falls. It's whether or not we're going to go beyond this. And do we go beyond peak oil? The earth and all the ecology, all of the ecosystems will continue. They will be changed as they have been changing forever. Will we be one of the species that remains?
Yeah, right. Figures out how to change.
So it's
Thank you.
more
That's our big
personal.
question. Thank you all. It's too short. This is a good beginning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janaea Donaldson, and you're watching Peak Moment, Community Responses for a Changing Energy Future. Join us again.